Will Activision remove skill-based matchmaking in the future? Maybe already in the next upcoming COD game? I guess most of us would say no, and unfortunately I believe that's the case as well, since the data that so many developers and publishers are referring to shows that they're simply making more money by keeping skill-based matchmaking in their games when it comes to casual or less skilled players that will stay longer playing due to SBMM and therefore buy more skins and cosmetics and whatnot in the in-game store. Well, so talking about skill-based matchmaking and other matchmaking algorithms differs tremendously if you do it from a cash-grabbing perspective, meaning from Activision's perspective, compared to what the actual players do experience when it comes to the harsh SBMM settings that we've seen in recent years when it comes to the newest COD games. With that said, Activision are well aware that quite many players aren't happy when it comes to strict SBMM settings, and they do realize that some players simply stop playing their games because of it. But again, the data has shown that they simply earn more by using and implementing algorithms such as skill-based matchmaking in their games. Now you might wonder, well hey, isn't skill-based matchmaking and EOMM foremost there to keep players staying in the game as long as possible, since it benefits the cash cow regarding in-game items being purchased? Yes, the answer is yes, but Activision and other companies are foremost focusing on the players in the lower skill brackets within the SBMM system, meaning less skilled players and straight up noobs, since that group of players, according to their data, are most likely to spend money on silly looking skins and whatnot. Well, according to the data that is. It's easy to say that skill-based matchmaking is there to protect bad players not quitting the game if being stumped upon. And I can understand that, especially or at least to a certain degree, but at the same time it comes with a cost, since players that are just above average and all the way up to the top will pay a price for that kind of philosophy or matchmaking system, since they will have a very similar matchmaking experience game after game after game, constantly being matched against players with the same skill level or above in casual game modes. Some would define that as sweating in every match, more or less. Please be aware, as said here, of the fact that I'm talking about casual game modes and not ranked, which is or should be a completely different experience. Since when entering ranked, well, the player wants to compete then and get matched against equal opponents as much and as often as possible. That's the whole point of it. So Activision and the devs are aware of the problems that skill-based matchmaking do create from a player perspective, especially when being somewhat good at the game and in the long run. But there isn't really much to do about it when you've already entered the SBMM path and also done it with very narrow settings, which is the case for example in Black Ops 6, giving the players very little or close to no variation. Players that believe or says that better players that wants to get rid of skill-based matchmaking in casual game modes says so just because they want to stomp on pups has most likely never been in the upper skill brackets themselves, experiencing how it actually is or feels when your matches constantly becomes a sweat feast. But just because you haven't experienced it yourself doesn't mean that other players are not experiencing it, which goes for other areas in life as well. So what does most players want then, and especially those players that are mostly affected by these skill-based matchmaking settings? I would say variation, as it was in most casual games and game modes for that sake quite a few years ago. Because even though I understand that new players, noobs if you will, but also less skilled players need their safe haven down in the lower skill brackets, the game or the matchmaking algorithms such as skill-based matchmaking aren't doing them a favor in the long run, if you think about it. Because many of these guys will most likely be stuck there, not being able to fully experience the true nature of actually playing an online multiplayer game against other real players. So I'd rather see a system where you're somewhat protected, of course, when you do start to play a new game when it comes to casual playlists. But as time goes by and you climb the ranks, let's say after reaching rank 20, just an example, the matchmaking becomes wider and you start playing against players with higher ranks and also more playtime, at least a variation between the two brackets if you will, because how will you otherwise ever become better at the game and actually feel that you're moving forward? This is the way that most players that are at least as old as me was brought up when it comes to playing online multiplayer games. You start off learning, sometimes even struggling, but as time goes by, you do become better and you then earn your skills and plays. But skill-based matchmaking doesn't work like that. There's little room for variation, So you very seldom, as a somewhat new player, get to play with some more experienced players when it comes to variation, and in order to learn how they play, etc. Instead, as mentioned earlier, you get put in a skill bracket, and if you're not that great of a player, you will be stuck there more or less. That's a bit like devalue the actual players and the players' possibilities, and also their own will. But the game or the algorithm is somewhat playing you and not the opposite around, which shouldn't be the case. And on top of SBMM and EOMM and similar, you also have another game mechanics that both Treyarch and Infinity Ward not too long ago did admit is there in order to encourage new or less skilled players in COD, and that's a fast TTK. Yes, the fast time to kill encourage and almost also assure that also bad players, if you will, do get kills in the game. So no, a fast TTK is not in the game because COD is a cool competitive shooter, because it's not a competitive game or a hardcore game for that sake, because casual modes has not become hardcore modes in their core game. Nope, it's there to give lower skilled players another incentive and possibility to stay longer in the game and matches. Go figure. With all that said, there's not a strong incentive for Activision to actually remove or at least lower the settings when it comes to skill-based matchmaking. The only reason why, or if that would happen, is if the numbers when it comes to players would be so bad that they are literally forced to take action against their own matchmaking system and matchmaking philosophy. And the only way to achieve that from a player perspective is if more people simply stop playing or buying their games. Which most likely won't happen either, since there are fans and kids out there, that will buy Call of Duty no matter what. So the future doesn't look that bright when it comes to skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty if it's something that is bothering you. Instead, we need to find ways to enjoy the game even so. Maybe something I've done more or less the last couple of years, just playing COD like occasionally instead of a regular basis, or play older COD games with less sweats, or simply choose another game or franchise. There's much to this as always, but I thought I would stop here, and it would be nice to hear about your skill-based matchmaking experiences as well, and maybe also what you think about the future as well regarding matchmaking algorithms such as skill-based matchmaking and similar. Maybe in Call of Duty, as I've mainly been talking about here, and other online shooters as well. With that said, I hope you're gonna have a beautiful day, and as always, take care, and I hope to talk to you soon also in an upcoming video. If you're new here and you appreciate FPS content, feel free to subscribe and hit that like button. It helps me out here on YouTube. So talk to you soon again. Take care. Later.